Today we are talking about No Longer Human. This is the #1 best-selling book of all time in Japan. If you've never heard about it, I will tell you about it. This is probably the darkest, most disturbing book I've ever read, and I cannot recommend it enough. The title, No Longer Human, refers to the author's complete and utter alienation from the human race. You can feel this profound longing the author has to become a human being, but this coincides with this omnipresent, overwhelming sense of the hopelessness of his situation. Along the narrative, eventually, he arrives at the conclusion that he'll always be an outsider. That's a large component of why this book is so crushing. At the beginning of the journals, he's miserable, and by the end, he's not even miserable anymore. Would you call this peace? No, this cannot be peace. This is something far, far below peace. This is what we would call total apathy. By the end, the author of the journals is a broken shell, no longer even capable of misery. What's most disturbing about this book, in my opinion, is how effectively the prose puts you directly into the protagonist's mind. This is like putting on a VR headset to experience the life of a person suffering from the most severe form of depression. It accomplishes this vivid immersion through, namely, non-chronological storytelling. And in fact, I'd argue this is barely even storytelling. This novel is like a loosely tied together string of events, which technically qualifies it as a story, but the reason you continue reading is because you just want the good stuff. This is a novel that is entirely good stuff. You're reading it not because the plot is so captivating, but because every single paragraph strikes deep at something the protagonist has observed, and it's fascinating. The question arises, who is he writing to? Who is he writing for? Does he even have a target audience? This is not the type of writing that's catered to some demographic or with any intention of recognition or fame or fortune. This is the writing of someone for whom writing is the only thing they have in this world. The author, to put it simply, has not a single person in his life that understands him. That, in my opinion, is why he's compelled to put this story to the page. Maybe as one last desperate cry for help, something reminiscent of a prayer. And here is the beautiful thing. I'm sure there are people out there today who are just as depressed, just as alienated, just as crushed as Osamu Dazai, the author, was. But unlike him, they do have someone who can relate to them, and his name is Osamu Dazai. This is the sort of book that would save someone from being a school shooter. There are people out there who really don't have anyone, people who have alcoholic parents who are bullied at school without a single person who they reveal their emotions to. Osamu Dazai relates to you. You will relate to Osamu Dazai if you read this novel. This book is horribly depressing, and in the world today where everything is forcibly happy and funny all the time, for me at least, it was like a breath of fresh air. Finally, someone is just being honest about how he really feels. For me, and I think many will have the same experience as I, this book is like a hyper-concentrated pill of the thing we're missing in the world. And when I say hyper-concentrated, I mean this book is 49,000 words, which scarcely even qualifies it for a novel. And there is no bullshit at all. It's the antidote for the superficial positivity of modernity. This is the kind of novel that you don't even remember what happens. The events of the novel are simply uninteresting. It's those dark places the author takes you on a psychological level that are the true appeal here. You won't remember the plot or the characters, really, but you'll remember how the book made you feel. That I can promise you. You'll remember how the book revealed to you that darker aspect of your life, the part that you didn't want to look at, and all of society is telling you to ignore. Maybe this book will give you the courage to finally acknowledge the ugliness in your life. And when you do, it's a beautiful catharsis. It's like setting down a weight you didn't even know you were carrying. So give this book a try. It's a 9.5 out of 10 for me. That's all.